It's my privilege and pleasure to introduce one of our annual special department seminars. It's through this event, the Cassel Seminar, the Tate-Turner-Kuralt Lecture, the Harry Guest Lecture, that we have the opportunity to really pause and honor some of the giants of their field and our department, and those who influenced the field of epidemiology in an important way. And I think it's one of the reasons we do this, it's critically important to the students, is that that we use these opportunities to recognize that for each successive generation of epidemiologists, that they fully appreciate those who came before, those whose work have laid the foundation for epidemiology as we know it today. These leaders blazed trails that expanded the discipline in many directions. They were especially effective at bridging epidemiology thinking and the practice of the time with other salient disciplines. They were very insightful through their immersion in other disciplines. They were logical, creative, practical, and they had a singular ability to create connections and connect dots that had not been connected before. And one of the characteristics of all the people I mentioned is that they were all exceptional teachers and mentors. They were all committed to inspiring the next generation of epidemiologists. And so today is a seminar in honor of one of those, John Cassel, so I'll say a few words about Dr. Cassel. He was born in Johannesburg, South Africa in 1921. He received an MD from the University of Witwatersrand. He joined the New Institute of Family and Community Health at the university. And his early work on the health of the Zulu population taught him the importance of cultural forces in the determination of disease etiology and healthcare delivery. He left in South Africa in 1953 to obtain further training in public health at UNC. His belief in the importance of the social environment as a determinant of the distribution of health in populations was greatly influenced in his experience in the practice of medicine in South Africa, and that experience proved to be both innovative and actually controversial in the United States at that time. In 1958, he became the chairman of a fledgling Department of Epidemiology at the University of North Carolina School of Public Health. He began to include health-relevant psychological, social, and cultural variables in the conceptual scheme for teaching and research in epidemiology. He attracted behavioral and social scientists to join the faculty along with physician, dentist, and nurse epidemiologists. The teaching program in epidemiology began to include subjects such as culture and health, family health, epidemiologic foundations for community diagnosis, social determinants of health behavior, and research into delivery and evaluation of health services, as well as genetic, biologic, and etiologic studies. During his time in North Carolina, he also utilized and worked in the population of North Carolina, and it became his laboratory for a broad range of epidemiologic studies of the transition of populations from rural to urban industrial. He was an earlier believer in holistic or integrative epidemiology, drawing upon many disciplines to address public health issues. He was resolute in his stance for social justice in both South Africa and the United States. He truly exemplified modern social epidemiology of his time in our time. And so in that context, we happily recognize this year's Cassel lecturer, Dr. Sandro Galea, who's a true leader in the tradition of in social epidemiology and tradition of John Cassel. So to introduce our special guest, Sandro, he is a physician and epidemiologist. He's the Robert A. Knox Professor and Dean at the Boston University School of Public Health. Prior to his appointment at BU, he served as the Gelman Professor and Chair of the Department of Epidemiology at the Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health. He previously held academic and leadership positions at the University of Michigan and at the New York Academy of Medicine. In terms of his scholarship, he is centrally interested in the social production of health of urban populations with a focus on the causes of brain disorders, particularly common mood anxiety disorders and substance abuse. He's long had a particular interest in the consequences of mass trauma and conflict worldwide, including as a result of September 11th attacks, Hurricane Katrina, conflicts in sub-Saharan Africa, and the American wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. This work has been principally funded by the NIH, CDC, and several foundations. He's published over 500 scientific journal articles, 50 chapters and commentaries, and 9 books. His latest book, co-authored with Catherine Keyes, is entitled Population Health Science, and that's forthcoming in Oxford University Press this year. He received his medical degree from the University of Toronto and graduate degrees from Harvard University and Columbia University. He has a number of honors, and I won't go through all of those, but notably he's past president of the Society for Epidemiologic Research, an elected member of the National Academy of Medicine and of the American Epidemiological Society. So it's just fabulous to have Sandro here to give a talk on a very a big topic of public health that is really important, that he's thought a lot about and written about, and just want to thank him for taking his time out as a busy being to come down here and give us this presentation. So let's welcome Sandro.
Well, thank you very much, Andy, for a very kind introduction. Thank you, Dean Reiner, for having me here. As you're all experienced lecture goers, so you all know that after that kind of introduction, it's all downhill from here. So you may want to leave now. It's really an honor to speak at the Cassel Lecture, and one of the slightly terrifying things to speaking at a lecture named after a giant in the field is trying to live up to the name of the person and his legacy, which I think Andy captured super well. So I wanted to try to do that by talking a little bit about the notion of what we're calling here social and context. Okay, can you hear me okay? I'm not echoing? Yeah, okay. And I want to talk a little bit about this notion of population health science that, as Andy mentioned, is the subject of the book. This is, in full disclosure, this is actually the book that's coming out soon, which is co-authored by my colleague Carrie Keyes, who I know was around here recently. I'm putting it up so you can all buy it and my kids can go to college. Anybody who's done a book knows how far from the truth that is. But I'm actually putting it up to acknowledge Carrie, who is a joint partner in all of this thinking. So let me jump into coming back to first principles. So I'm going to start with what we are trying to do. And it sounds a bit absurd to say what we're trying to do because you all know what you're here for, what you're trying to do. But I think it's helpful to say, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we in a school of public health? What ultimately are we trying to get out of it? So we care about that. We care about populations. And I'm putting up a picture of a population, which you can use your experience, histories, biases, prejudices to figure out to think where that is. It doesn't really matter. The point I'm trying to make is that we care about groups of people who are interlinked in a complex way, among whom there are spatially dependent interactions, who change minute to minute, and who have a whole set of complexities that ultimately shape who they are and their health. That's what we're trying to do. What we do typically is this, is we treat those people as that. We treat those people as sort of sets of sort of gray undifferentiated types. But nonetheless, what our goal is, aspiration, is to say some of those people have disease, and we want to create a world where fewer of them have disease. We want to create a world where, from that picture, we actually end up with that picture, with fewer people with disease. So this is what we're trying to do. And this is the goal of public health. Now, definitionally, taking National Academy of Medicine definition of public health is what we as a society do collectively to assure the conditions for people to be healthy with the underlying being mind. So we try to do this through creating healthy conditions. And we have the good fortune of being part of the academic enterprise that aspires to create those conditions so we can create healthy populations. So part one is, that's what we try to do. Part two, well, is this actually what we are doing? Is this what we end up doing? Well, broadly, no. That's not what we actually do. What we end up doing, broadly, are things like this. This is just a sampling of newspaper headlines about the quest for genes that are intended to fight heart attacks. And that, of course, results in something which you're being very involved in, which is things like the Precision Medicine Initiative, which is, this is President Obama, including this budget I sent to Congress, the Precision Medicine Initiative, which is intended to cure diseases like cancer, diabetes, giving us all access. This is founded on the immensely seductive notion of the capacity of us dealing with and treating the individual and getting the enough information for us to create health for all individuals, hence creating healthy populations. This, of course, is a whole realm of literature on this, but all of this ultimately is predicated on the notion, which is sort of one might call the long range silver bullet approach, which is that if we understand individuals well enough, we'll figure out a way to treat individuals such that they have healthier populations. Now, is that true? I mean, I'm just saying that I'm making a rhetorical point. Is that the case? Well, you can look at simple things like NIH funding. So this is NIH funding current fiscal year. The red is the NIH funding, about $32 billion. The blue slice is projects with term population public in the title. Now you're going to say, well, that's not a very good measure. I know it's not a good measure. I don't know what the better measure is, but it's one measure. So forget about the absolute number. Let's just look at what's happened to this measure over the past 10 years. That's what's happened to this measure in the past 10 years. So this, we have essentially gone down tenfold. That's our surge right there in NIH funding to projects which actually think about populations. Okay, so A, we're trying to think about populations. B, I'm arguing that's not really what we're doing. Now, C, you might say, well, so what? If we're doing well, we're doing well. Well, where is this getting us? Well, we have no shortage of throwing money at the issue, that's the good news. So this is health spending in the US, that's the purple line. These colored lines here are all the other rational countries in the world, but this is us. This is good. This is like America, which simultaneously holds the two contradictory concepts in its own head at the same time, that America is the best country in the world, but also we need to make America great again. But this is, I'm an alien, so I can say such things. Can you say both things at the same time? You can't be both. So we spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of money on health care, on health and health care. I recently showed this slide, and one of my colleagues at Boston University took me to task and said, this has nothing to do with health, this has nothing to do with medicine. It is, this is what we're spending money on. And what outcomes are we getting? Well, this is US non-communicable disease among our peer countries. This is from a National Academy of Medicine report that got a lot of press, deservedly so, a few years ago. This is us being sort of at the bottom of the heap. Denmark here is worse than us, but on most other things, we're actually worse than Denmark. And everybody knows this. This is a sophisticated audience. Everybody knows we spend a lot of money on health broadly, and our outcomes are worse than everything else. And we sort of accept this with a bit of a shrug, right? It's sort of just meh. It's just how it is. It's America. It's how it is. How many times have you thought that? By the way, I'll challenge you. Think of what other sector does this country spend at least 30% more than any other peer country and have worse outcomes? We're going to spend more. We're going to spend 30% more than anybody else. There's no other sector where we actually accept this. Like this is so every single time you're at a dinner party where people discuss this and people say, "Yeah, it's just how it is." Essentially, right? How many times have you been at a dinner party where people say, "Yeah, just how it is"? It's actually, I don't know. It doesn't have to be that way. By the way, it doesn't have to be that way. And here's the point that we think you forget. It wasn't always like that. Now there are many people in the room here who weren't alive 30 years ago, but there are many of us who were alive 30 years ago. So 30 years ago, this is 1980. 30 years ago. This is the US. We were actually in the top half of countries. And look what's happened since 1980. Everybody's gotten better. We've also gotten better, but we have drifted resolutely to the very bottom of the pile of the other countries with life expectancy, who are our peer nations. So we have built a world, and we have been successful in the past 30 years at giving ourselves worse health indicators than anybody else. The bad news is that we've done that. The good news is that we did that over 30 years, which means we should be able to reverse it if we set our mind to it. And we certainly succeeded in doing this, nor is why we can't succeed in reversing it. And what kind of health picture have we created? We created this kind of health picture. This is my favorite slide in the whole world. For any students who haven't seen it, I'm sure the faculty have. So this is the 17 wealthiest countries in the world, our peer countries. And this is where we rank on 1 to 17. By the way, the 2 lines are men and women. They behave the same way, so you can ignore them. At different age groups. So this is newborns, infants, children, 0 to 1, 1 to 4, 5 to 9, etc. So we rank 17. We're dead last at all ages. We jump up to 16th at about 65. But then the best part is when you get to 80, we jump to number 1. So this is just an awesome country to live in, as long as you live to 80, because then you live forever, then you never die. And the question I ask you is this the kind of country that you want to live in? Because this is the kind of country we have created. We've done this over the past 30 years. And I think it's worth just keeping in mind. This is what our approach has currently given us. Now, before I sort of delve back into sort of some of the reasons for that, I just did want to make a global comment, because after all, this is a global school of public health. because most of what I'm talking about today is domestic, but I didn't want to have my talk sort of completely unmoored from the rest of the world. So I just want to make one global comment. This is under 5 mortality per 1,000 live births. This is the US. So I'm comparing it against some of the other countries, but here, so you know that we're worse than anybody else, but I'm just showing you some other countries that people don't think we're worse than. You know, we're worse than Cuba. We didn't talk to for many years, but now we're friends. You know, we're worse than Greece. You know, Greece can't get anything right, but they kill fewer babies than we do. So it's actually, that's okay. But just to add one more country to this list, let me just add Ethiopia. Same graph, adding Ethiopia. That's adding Ethiopia. So it's the same graph. I know it doesn't look like it, but the same countries. The only changes to y-axis as Ethiopia. So just to give us a sense of the global scope. And again, just to think about the global scope, right, because I don't want to lose sight of that. This is the world by preventable deaths. This is where preventable deaths are in the world, and you see some enormous disproportionate preventable deaths in Africa and Southeast Asia. So I did want to label that because most of my talk is domestic, and I'm happy to talk afterwards about some of the, I think, more global implications of what I'm talking about. But that's sort of a bit of a global detour. But let me come back closer to home. That's home for me right now, which is Boston. And sometimes when I presented those slides to the Boston crowd, I don't know if any of you have ever spent any time in Boston. And there are only 2 industries in Boston. One is universities and one is health. So when you're actually in a university studying health, you feel like you're in the middle of the universe. And there's a bit of an attitude in Boston. They're like, yeah, the rest of the country's messed up, but we've got to figure it out. So one of the things I did when I first got there, perhaps my inimitable way of making friends, was I looked at sort of Boston. So this is Boston. Any of you who know this is T in Boston. Never works, but it's sort of, it looks good. But we looked at people and the burden of diabetes around T-stops. So you see here, these T-stops, Arlington and Fenway, diabetes about 2 to 3%. And these T-stops in Maverick, Dudley Square, Manhattan about 5 times greater. So within 2 to 3 miles of each other, there's a bit of a 5-fold burden difference in diabetes prevalence. And the nice thing about showing this in Boston, I'm sure you can show this here as well, but I don't feel so smart and sure, so it's exactly the same here, is that in Boston, you can make the case very quickly that this is nothing to do with access to great hospitals, because this is, of course, this is Boston. This is all great hospitals. People from the oil-rich countries come to all of these hospitals all the time, and this is what surrounds these countries. So this is the kind of world that we have created. And you know, it's then not a big surprise that the president wishes on, look, let's just find a solution. You know, let me give you a blood sample and come up with my particular health signature on a chip so that you can fix me and don't worry about everybody else. It's also no surprise that this is how people tend to think of us in the health industry. This is a news reporter saying, you know, coffee can cause depression in twins. Well, equally well, he could have said daycare can cause hypothermia in men aged 25 to 40. But this is frequently, I think, how we feel to the world. So that's painting the picture as to where we're at now. So why the state of affairs? So this is ultimately what motivated our thinking about what exactly doing by population health science. And I think we're a pragmatist, and one can rail against politics, and one can rail about many things that are causing the state of affairs. That's fine. I think it's interesting to part of the conversation. But what I'm really interested in is what can we do? What can we do? What is our responsibility? Because this is what I do. And if I care about this, I should ask, what can I do to make this happen? So we have really been trying to think about what are the challenges in how we do population health thinking? What are the challenges in how we do population health science that have allowed the state of affairs to happen? Let's take responsibility upon ourselves and say, what are we doing wrong that has set the stage for the state of affairs? And then, how can we fix it? What should we do differently? So that's sort of the structure of my talk. So let me give you 5 things that I think we are doing wrong, and then I'm going to give you 5 solutions, things that I think we can do better. And all of this is roughly the spirit of the book. The book is organized around 9 foundational principles of population health science. I'm telling you about 5 of them here, so you buy the book for the other 4. So, why the state of affairs? Number 1, we are fascinated with individual health, and we cannot shake this. And you know, I know everybody here is in public health, and you're like, not me. That's not true. It actually is you and me. We are actually like stuck on this notion of individual health, and that permeates everything we do. If you care about translation of our science, whenever you're on a boring conference call, which I know none of you ever are, but just in case you were, spend half an hour on Amazon looking at books on health. And you will find that to a book, they are all about individual health. They're all about how I can make myself better. It's all about me and how I can make myself better. My favorite is, you are your own gym. Furthest from the truth like this. But doesn't that make you want to go out and become your own gym, whatever it is? And now, so why is that? So why is that? What are we doing to contribute to that? Well, what we are doing to contribute to that is we are making fundamental errors in allowing population-based science to be translated to individual-based observation. So let me just show you a core basic example of this, which everybody knows. This is like Epi 101, but we keep forgetting this. So this is, I'm picking out a paper from our own group. School of Public Health, Boston University, we run the Framingham study. It's one of the oldest cohorts in the world, with a lot of papers from it to choose from. So this is a paper came out a few years ago. This is genotype score and cumulative incidence of diabetes. So when you look at this is from Framingham. Genotype score, so that's a fancy way of doing genes, not just a single genotype, sophisticated, you add genes, genotype score. You look at this is a classic dose-response relationship, right? So whoever teaches FE1, this is classic dose-response, you can show this. Now, when you look at this, right, what is your impulse? That's pretty cool. I mean, come on, you must admit, what you're thinking is, I wonder what my genotype score is. I mean, I won't ask who was not thinking that. That's inevitable. I actually have presented this slide 50 times, and every single time I look at this, I'm like, I wonder what my genotype score is. But, so we know this, but this is, of course, population of observation. It has nothing to do with your genotype score, because in fact, the same paper, the reason I love this paper, is because they show the same genotype score mapped out by percent of subjects, the black line in people with diabetes, the gray line in people without diabetes, and what you see, of course, where your genotype score is tells you very little about whether or not you are on the black line or on the gray line, because it's a population observation versus individual observation. So our fascination with individual health has allowed us to get to a place where we have a population individual split, and we are inferring that analyses that happen at population level have resonance and meaning at the individual level, when in fact that's not the case. In fact, when do population level observations translate into some confidence that we can use them for individual prediction? So, trying to put it another way, let's take the relative measure of association that we typically use, relative risk or odds ratio. At what level of relative risk or odds ratio do we have curve separation? What level can we actually say, actually I know with a particular score I'm going to be on the black curve versus the gray curve? At what level of odds ratio? You can think about it in your own heads. This is shown, this is from a paper by Margaret Pepe and her group, showing that you need an odds ratio of about 350 to have curve separation. I have not had the privilege of working on a paper in my academic career with an odds ratio of 350. I know there are great epidemiologists in the audience, but I'll ask them to question themselves. So, by the way, here's the good news. The good news is that this fallacy is not unique to us. In fact, it's actually shared by some of the very prominent sort of savants in the media today. This is Nate Silver made his name in political prediction. He became famous in 2008, 2012, predicting not just Obama, predicting all the states, et cetera, And of course, Nate Silver applies this trade using population level data. It's elections. Elections is perfect population level data. Large number of people, a lot of data put together, and he's done very well at predicting elections. But of course, Mr. Silver also could not resist predicting individual, and he gets into predicting individual sporting events. And just to show you an example of the sport I care about, which is soccer. This is the 2014 World Cup semifinal, where he was predicting Brazil versus Germany, predicting Brazil will win 73%. But here's the best part. He then did statistical witchcraft, and he said Neymar and Silva, who are two players who play for Brazil, might be injured. So I did adjustment for them, and the chance of Brazil winning is now 65%. Now, that's convincing, right? Because he adjusted. God knows what that means, but he adjusted. I know we're laughing, but think of this way. Come on, how many of you have done that in papers? We adjusted for it. Wow, that sounds really cool. And of course, people might remember historically what actually happened is that Brazil were crushed by Germany 7-1 and they lost, and they're still crying over, leading directly to the impeachment of their current president. And so the reason for the pathology is that it's the inference from population of data, which I would argue drives a lot of what we allow to happen today. I know you're all thinking it's not a mistake that we make. I know. I actually understand it. I understand everybody's thinking, no, we know better. We are a distinguished school of public health, we know better, but actually it doesn't matter if we know better. If we are allowing the world to make that mistake, it is our responsibility and it is our fault. Error one. Number two. This might be slightly more controversial. I'm slightly worried about telling you this one, but it's okay. You can yell at me later. Number two, we focus on our entire quantitative population health approach is a focus on identifying individual causes. this is the hunt. There are many doctoral students in the room, and what you are doing with your doctoral dissertation is identifying individual causes. You are there to find the X that's linked to the Y after you adjust or name our somebody for injury. So that's what you're doing. And what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that ultimately focus on individual causes keeps eliding the fact that the contribution of any individual cause is entirely dependent on other co-occurring causes, many of which we don't know what they are. And this, of course, underlies some of the challenges we have in the context of poor external validity for many of our studies. So how does this manifest? It manifests in contradictory results that are perfectly internally valid, that do a very good job internally of looking at X linked to Y, and then they fail to replicate, and, or else they fail to match other studies between experimental application studies. There are many problems with that. Sometimes it's internal validity, but assuming internal validity, we are missing issues because of external validity, because of co-occurring causes, which a focus on isolated single causes does not let us do. So just to show a couple of examples, there's hormone replacement therapy associated with lower cardiovascular diseases from the nurses study done at Harvard, which, as everybody knows, in the aughts, we were all convinced that hormone replacement therapy was associated with lower incidence of cardiovascular disease until, of course, experimental study Women's Health Initiative showed that, oops, that wasn't the case. Hormone replacement therapy was killing women with cardiovascular disease. I can show you many other examples. So this is ginkgo, the low nutritional supplement, lower incidence of dementia, until experimental study shows actually no difference whatsoever. And my favorite, beta-carotene associated with lower risk of lung cancer, until experimental study shows that beta-carotene kills people with lung cancer. So why is this? It's actually a simple matter of isolating causes, and when in fact causes work as part of a complex causal architecture that is driving the production of health. And we have allowed our thinking to ever narrow and to develop better and better methods that focus on isolating causes. Because of course the production of health is that. We all know this. This is obesity, is from the Foresight group in the United Kingdom, showing that the production of obesity is ultimately about energy balance, which is about control of appetite, strength of our ability to accumulate energy, ability to preserve that energy. That is really the causal diagram for obesity. And for anybody here who is engaged in the business of what I'm calling quantitative population health science, you know that that gives you shivers, because you're trying to think of like, how do I make it into a bag, and how do I put it in a regression model? And that, of course, gets worse when you realize that that is actually part of that. So that is ultimately the world that we're dealing with. That's number 2. Number 3, misplaced emphasis in thinking about causes. So we spend a lot of time arguing about what exactly is a cause, and we use a lot of words like correlation and risk factors. And if I hear somebody saying one more time, well, correlation is not causation, it's just high on the list of phrases that should never be uttered. Because we have spent a lot of time arguing, is this a cause, is that a cause? And that, of course, is directly derived from our insistence on trying to isolate things that may or may not be causal. They're all causes. If you start thinking in a complex causal way, in a causal architecture way, a full range of factors across the life force, across multiple levels, they're all causes. They're ultimately just all interlinked, and they are within the paradigm that sort of really upended epidemiology correctly about 30 years ago. These are all insufficient and not necessary component causes, but they're all ultimately causes. The good news is, or the bad news, is that we've been arguing about things like this for about 150 years. Gentleman to the left, Edwin Chadwick. Gentleman to the right, William Farr. You've all heard about Chadwick and Farr. Edwin Chadwick and William Farr, big argument in the middle of the 19th century about whether or not poverty killed children in mid-19th century London. Edwin Chadwick, the politician, said absolutely no way. Poverty does not kill children in mid-19th century London because we're a civilized society. There's no way poverty kills children. William Farr was just counting deaths and said, look, poor people, dying, children. And Chadwick says, well, yeah, it's not poverty that's killing them. What's killing them is nutrition deficiency. So that was the argument. By Chadwick won that argument. Is poverty a cause? Of course poverty is a cause. Nutrition deficiency a cause? Of course it's a cause. We should just stop arguing about causes. We eventually move on to understanding that it is a complex set of causes that drives the production of population health. And remember, I'm telling you this because I'm trying to identify ways in which we can get better and move forward to avoid the challenges that I listed at the beginning. And I would argue that we have enjoyed these arguments, and we have sort of seen them as esoteric academic arguments, but I'm arguing that it is us indulging in these arguments that in part has given a license to us nationally going down the wrong way and producing the kind of health indicators that I'm showing you. Now, I got myself waded into the morass of this kind of battle with a paper that we published a few years ago where we use population attributable risks to show that low education is responsible for 190,000 deaths, low support 180,000 deaths, racial segregation 150,000, roughly the same as acute myocardial infarction, stroke, lung cancer, etc. And this paper correctly criticized for using population attributable fractions, which has substantial limitations. That's fine. But of course, this paper is the exact same methods that we use to attribute 400,000 deaths to obesity and 400,000 deaths to smoking and a number of deaths to intoxication of alcohol, etc., etc. Ultimately, it's the exact same thing. Is obesity a cause of that? Absolutely. Is intoxication of alcohol a cause of that? Absolutely. Is poverty a cause of that? Absolutely. And we should just stop arguing about it and accept that these are all part of a complex causal architecture, and they're all factors that we must grapple with to produce healthier populations. Everybody knows that one of the reasons why the world is healthier than it was 100 years ago is the drop in infectious disease mortality in this country. I will say to you, what caused the drop in infectious disease mortality in this country? Now, we're in school public health, so a bunch of you are going to say hand washing, a bunch of you are going to say cleaner hospitals, a bunch of you are going to say penicillin, etc., right? Were all these causes? Of course they were causes. Now, a purist would say, well, when it's a cause, we must be able to demonstrate an experimental paradigm, a counterfactual paradigm. Which of these is really been demonstrated in the randomized control trial? Well, actually none of them, but antibiotics much more so than anything else. Well, this is the curve of infectious disease mortality in the US in the 20th century. This is the dramatic drop. This is the flu pandemic of 1918. And that is the introduction of penicillin. Right? So this is the challenge with the individual causal paradigm, that it makes us focus on things that ultimately may not matter so much in terms of the Russian population. Point four. Point four is forgetting about context. Forgetting about context and what matters most. I'm going to show you an example of this. This is the crack baby epidemic of the 1980s. You know it was a problem because Tom Broadwell was talking about it. And for any of you who had the good fortune of growing up as a substance use epidemiologist in the 80s and early 90s, a lot of that was actually buoyed by the epidemic of substance use epidemiology funding that followed this. So it had very positive effects for the field. And there's only one problem with the crack baby epidemic is that there was no such thing. It was actually, yes, there were women who were taking gestational cocaine, but when studies were 2 or 3 years out were shown, this is control babies, and the gray are babies who had gestational cocaine exposure, GCE. This is on standard scores and Peabody vocabulary tests. And study after study showed that actually gestational cocaine did little next to nothing to affect these babies. But why all this fuss? All this fuss was about the fact that these babies were doing more poorly than other babies, but it had nothing to do with gestational cocaine. What it had to do with was environmental stimulation and the poverty that these babies were born in. The ubiquitous force, context, was ultimately what was driving this. And this ubiquitous force was poverty that was highly directly correlated with gestational cocaine, and we missed it. And it actually resulted in us floating on the sea of saying it was a crack cocaine epidemic. Point 5. Misinvestment of money, time, and energy. So I'm going to show you one example of this, which also can get me in trouble. So first, let me start with this. This is an editorial analysis of internal medicine, which says that after tobacco control, the most cost-effective intervention to control chronic disease might be reduction of sodium intake in populations. This editorial was written by Dr. Tom Frieden, currently director of CDC. Roughly contemporaneous with this editorial was an editorial in the British Medical Journal, which is a journal of some repute, saying it's surprising that many countries have uncritically adopted sodium reduction, probably the largest origin in the history of preventive medicine. So a group of colleagues and I were really fascinated by this dichotomy, and sort of weren't really involved in this whole debate, but like how is it that these two completely different worlds, with these completely different opinions? Well, so we looked at this, we published a bunch of papers. A recent paper came out in the International Journal of Epidemiology, but just to show you briefly what's going on, this is a sort of schematic. These are red are papers that actually conclude that population level salt is associated with reduction in cardiovascular mortality. The black concludes there's no such thing, and the gray is in the middle. And what we actually found is a schematic showing is ultimately the red deciding red, the black deciding black. And what we have is two distinct literatures masquerading as one literature, and the two never meeting. We found, for example, that systematic reviews, supposedly systematic reviews, included roughly 23% of papers who were eligible to include systematic reviews, which meant that we had this whole world where we are just not talking to each other. And we do this again and again in science. And I think it really matters for what we do. So it's a misinvestment of our time. Now about misinvestment of our money. So this is This is a picture taken from the Boston Foundation, where they do this interesting exercise about saying, well, determinants of health, and they attribute 6% of health to access to care, which is of course completely bogus estimation, but nonetheless, I think we can all agree that access to care is ultimately not a majority of what's driving health. Genetics, physical environment, healthy behaviors, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But what's relevant here is they map this onto that, which is what we actually spend our health dollars. And of course, we spend more than 90% of our health dollars on medical services. So regardless of how you construe this column, we have a disproportionate burden of weighting things on to medical services, which ultimately is what results in that picture I showed you, which is it's a great country to live in if you're over 80, right? Because that's where a lot of that is going. And when I showed this slide in Boston, again, I get this sort of full Massachusetts exceptionalism, like, well, that must be North Carolina. Massachusetts would not like that. So I started following this slide, and this is changes in state government expenditure in Massachusetts over the past 14 years. This is increase in medical care, 80%, and a decrease or staying the same of primary, secondary education, law and public safety, mental health, public health, higher education, early child education, environment and recreation. I would consider that a complete and total colossal failure of public health, because we essentially failed on any spending insofar as the spending matters. And I don't know, it's like in North Carolina, but I don't suspect you're any much better than we are in Massachusetts. And misuse of money and spending. So we spend a lot of money on health. Where is the money going, and why are the outcomes are so poor? Well, here's why. This is us compared to some of our peer countries. This is U.S. spending. Now it's in the middle of the pack. Why is it in the middle of the pack? Because here it's adding health care, which is medicine, with social services, everything I showed you before. So when you add the two together, we're actually in the middle of the pack. We're not outspending everybody else. What we're outspending everybody else is on the light bar, which is only on medicine. So we have this enormous shift in disinvestment in money. And now, of course, you might say, well,